Good evening and welcome to Kunsampai Chilling. We're delighted to host you tonight for another teaching by Jetsunma Ahkon. Tonight's teaching was given in 1991. The title is Use Devotion for Personal Change. And so we'll begin.
So today's teaching for the adults is about a slightly different subject, although I think in both aspects of the teaching, one is required to look at oneself. Certainly the teaching that I gave the children this morning will require them to examine what they are like, what their anger looks like, what their kindness and generosity looks like, and they can have an understanding of that, can have a view of what their behavior seems to be, and it might help them to be more introspective, to really examine themselves and form some opinions about how they'd really like to be. I think that can be really useful. Children can learn to do that pretty easily. They can learn to examine themselves, particularly if they are taught to do so from a very young age, and they are taught to do so in a comfortable way, that is to say, a way that doesn't make them anxious or make them feel pressured, in a natural way that's right for them. Adults, I think, have a much harder time examining themselves because we have years of experience as to how to cover our own behavior from ourselves. We're adepts at it. We know exactly how far to look and how deep to look before we get scared and run away and hide from ourselves. And often it's a big secret to an adult person as to what their behavior might be like. I have a son that is, it's probably both his blessing and his curse. He has a very entertaining way of imitating people. He can imitate their mannerisms and what they're likely to say under a certain situation. And he once decided to took it in his head to imitate certain people in the center. And he was uncannily good at it. Uncannily good at it. And interestingly, the people in the center did not recognize themselves when they were being imitated, but everyone else did. And some of them actually were taken aback by the imitations, but everyone else thought, oh, that's just you, that's just how you are. It was really interesting to see that, and I think on a deeper level, of course that's very superficial, but on a deeper level, we are unwilling to look at ourselves. We are unwilling to examine ourselves. We're unwilling to really take note of ourselves in a realistic fashion. It's difficult to do. It's painful and difficult. Much easier to blame our environment for any faults that we see. Much easier to blame our suffering on our surroundings than to blame ourselves, or to look at ourselves and be realistic about how suffering has actually come about. Of course, the Buddha teaches us that suffering comes about through cause and effect relationships that we ourselves begin, that we ourselves put into practice. And that's hard to think about. It's much easier to say, oh, it's my parents' fault, they didn't love me. I'm neurotic because my parents were not good parents. The Buddha teaches us that it wasn't a coincidence that our parents may not have been. They may not have been good parents. They may not have been totally loving parents. But the Buddha teaches us that this is a ripening result that is due to some previous cause that we ourselves have instigated. probably, most likely, in some past lives, we ourselves were our parents' parents. We were not very kind to them. And so what we see at this point is usually the ripening result of some previous karma. And that result serves as another cause, which serves as another result, which serves as another cause. And we have this interdependently arising set of circumstances of cause and effect relationships that seem to be like an unbroken and unbreakable chain, because we are constantly reacting to our environment, and that reaction constantly serves as new seed and constantly ripens as future result. So there are many problems associated with cyclic existence, of course, but one of the main faults of this never-ending cycle of ripening cause and effect relationships, one of the main faults of cyclic existence is that it is so circular. It is so seemingly unbreakable, and its root causes are so seemingly unfathomable. We ourselves are caught up in cyclic existence, constantly responding to it, constantly reacting to it, and thereby constantly creating new causes within our own mind stream. Very, very difficult to see, very, very difficult to understand. Particularly, it is difficult to understand how to break the chain. Many of us feel that we can examine our own spiritual quest, and without help, we can construct an appropriate methodology for ourselves. Many of us feel that, anyone that's here probably feels as though they wish to be a deeply spiritual person. Anyone here must have proper motivation. They must really care to be kind and loving and deeply spiritual. You would not be coming to a class on Buddhism or any form of meditation if you didn't have that desire, if you didn't hold it close to your heart. Many of us feel that we wish to dedicate our lives to being spiritual people, and that we wish to institute proper actions that will bring about auspicious results. But the difficulty that many practitioners have, and this I'm speaking to both general metaphysics practitioners or general philosophical religious people, or people that are committed as Buddhists, in this case there is no difference. Many people make the mistake of feeling that their own perception, their own judgment of themselves and of their environment and of their activity and of an antidote perhaps that they might apply to solve their problem. Many of us make the mistake of thinking that the judgment that we have about these situations is right on the money, that we are absolutely correct in our judgment. We don't realize that at every moment in cyclic existence, and again, this is one of its major pitfalls, one of its major faults, is that at every moment in cyclic existence, we are constantly in a reactive mode. We are either reacting to our external environment or we are reacting to our internal environment. But we are deeply reactive. It's very hard for us to see clearly. In Buddhism, one's guru, one's lama, is used almost as a mirror sometimes, has a mirroring function. And particularly in Vajrayana, one should look toward one's lama as being an indication of the condition of one's mind stream. It isn't true of all, I think, religious philosophies, but certainly in Buddhism, that is the case. For instance, if our root guru, with whom we have already formed a relationship, the auspicious relationship, and in whom we already have some confidence, and that confidence is proven to be true by virtue of the fact that that lama or guru is qualified to teach the path, and is known to be qualified for that, and that we ourselves have a good relationship with that teacher. If the teacher in whom we have vested some confidence indicates to us that our need is to establish compassion, and indicates that need again and again and again very strongly, without cessation, seems to indicate that to us again and again and again, then we should assume from that 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 is the truth. We should assume from that 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 is our primary need. And we should assume from that as well that we really haven't accomplished that yet. But we don't do that. We don't do that in a clean and pure way. Generally what happens is the student will hear a teaching on compassion, for instance, for the 579th time, which any of you who have practiced here have certainly heard at least 579 times. And they will walk away from the class and say something like, oh, that wasn't meant for me. That's not for me. I already know about compassion, so I don't need to hear that anymore. She was talking to the ones that are weak in compassion, those poor slobs. But I myself am very strong in compassion, and clearly I know the method, and I have compassion. But they, poor, pitiful creatures that they are, don't have too much compassion. So I don't need to hear this 579 times. So I'll either fade out while I'm in class and think about me and how compassionate I am, or maybe I'll just think about me and how wonderful I am, or maybe I'll just think about me and how troubled I am, or maybe I'll just remain in my usual condition, self-absorption. But I don't really need to hear this teaching on compassion, or this teaching on putting others as higher than myself, or more important than myself, or really meditating on the faults of cyclic existence and how others are suffering in cyclic existence. I'll just think about me, because I've heard so many teachings on compassion already. Now that may sound really silly, but that's kind of what we do. That is kind of what we do. And yet if we have a teacher that constantly puts that teaching in our face, constantly delivers that teaching, constantly confers that blessing, we have to assume that there is a message here that we should be receiving. I've actually had students come up to me and say, class is getting a little repetitive. No, I kid you not. This happens to me. And, gee, do you think that's true? Do you think class is getting repetitive? You better not say yes now, can you? And I would say you're right, it's repetitive. Because what you're going to hear about in one of my classes is pure qualities. Developing pure qualities. Developing compassion, developing devotion, developing honesty, developing pure ethics. These are the things you're going to hear about in my class. And you're going to hear about them again and again and again until you change. Now, when you change, that's when I can assume that you've heard the teaching the first time. That's when finally you've heard it. See, I've studied marketing. Actually, that's not true, but I look at a lot of clothes catalogs. And one thing that I've noticed, those of you that know and love me know that this is true. And actually what I've noticed that in clothes catalogs is that they keep sending you pictures of the same clothes again and again and again. And usually you don't buy it until you've seen it about 25 times. So I didn't make this up. This is actually good marketing procedure. And what we're marketing here is we're marketing kindness. So you will hear a teaching on kindness at least 579 times. And you'll hear it in many different forms. It's like being served ice cream, but a different flavor every day of your life. But you will eat ice cream every day. And you're right, it's repetitive. And it's going to be repetitive until I see the change in the student that I wish to see, until I really see the qualities develop that I wish to see. And I think that happens slowly and over a great deal of time. But as a student, the responsibility that you have is to assume that what the teacher says to you is what you need to hear. You must assume that. There's a side benefit of that. Most people kind of float on their lives, kind of float on the surface of their lives, thinking that what happens to them is kind of incidental. It's a coincidence. that I don't have any good friends. It's a coincidence that nobody's really crazy about me. It's a coincidence that I keep breaking up in relationships. It's a coincidence that I'm always angry. Everybody makes me mad. It's not my fault. It's not that I'm an angry person. It's just that everybody's made me mad for 25 years. It just kind of happens that way. And I get depressed a lot, but really that's not my fault either. That's not an indication of my qualities. It has nothing to do with me. It's the fact that everybody in the world just, they kind of contrive to make me sad. They always do. And so we think like that. We kind of float on the surface of our lives, thinking that everything is kind of happening to me, and it's an accident, and I have nothing to do with it, really. Nothing to do with it. It just happens to me that I meet up with these women that just sweep me off my feet, and then I just can't help it. I am consumed with lust. Or it just happens that these men come into my life and they kind of take me away, and I don't know what to do, and I'm just blown away by it. And it's nothing to do with me. It just seems to happen to me all the time. That's kind of how we think. Now, one of the antidotes that Vajrayana offers to that kind of thinking, which is a purely failure-ridden, get-nowhere kind of thinking from a spiritual perspective, is that we are taught to view our teachers, to view our lamas as being an actual reflection of the condition of our mind. If the teacher keeps laying this compassion teaching on us, then that's what we need. If the teacher keeps laying this teaching on devotion on us, then that's what we need. If the teacher keeps harping endlessly, ad nauseum, on a certain 2 or 3 subjects, then these must be a reflection of the antidote that our minds require. It must be. I wouldn't be hearing that if it weren't an antidote that I personally require. We are taught to assume that on the Vajrayana path. And that gives us a method or an indication as to how to look deeper in our lives. We should apply the same method in any area in our lives. If we have trouble keeping friendships, for instance, or if we have trouble because friendships tend to let us down, we tend to be disappointed in friendships or relationships of different kinds. If we habitually find ourselves disappointed and left alone, then instead of just thinking, oh, that's just what happens to me, it's really not my fault, I try to be nice, I try to be a good friend. We should understand from seeing that in our lives that that is an indication of something that is actually occurring within our mind stream, and we should take responsibility for that. If we say that this thing is always happening to me from outside, there's no hope. If we say instead that this thing is happening to me because clearly it is the ripening of some karma that I myself have been involved in, and clearly in the past it must be that I was not a good friend, or that I was deceptive towards others, or that I let others down, or that I betrayed others. If not in this life, then in some previous life. If we accept that information in that way as an indication of the cause and effect relationships that are ripening within our own mind stream, then we can do something about it. We can change. We can develop the habit of kindness and a high regard for the welfare of others. We can inconvenience ourselves. We can go to bat for others. We can do what we can to make others feel good about themselves, to prevent them from being lonely. We can do what we can to not let others down. We can develop a strong ethical system of behavior by which we do not forsake or abandon others, but that we are kind to them. And we can hope that that will result in the future in a ripening that we are more comfortable with, one that we can really live with, one in which that love, that loving kindness will return to us. We can hope for that, and we can generally be assured that that will happen. These are the Buddhist teachings. But if we say that these things only happen to us and we don't know why we're such victims, there's no hope. There's no hope. We can only continue revolving helplessly, wandering in cyclic existence. Because there's nothing we can do about it. If we tell ourselves there's nothing we can do about it, then we're right. There's nothing we can do about it. It will continue to ripen in just that way. Buddhism is actually a strong system of ethics. And one of the religious, sort of esoteric ethics that we are taught is a strong devotion to and adherence to the teachings of our own gurus. This is meant not as a way to build a dynasty, where a guru comes and they have all these people under their control. I know Westerners think like that because we're so strongly steeped in democracy. And from a religious point of view, we don't have the habit, we are not used to thinking that we should follow the teachings of the guru. We don't understand why we should do that. It isn't so that the guru can have control over so many people. It isn't like that at all. It's so that we can develop the habit of applying the antidote, of accepting what is given to us, what we see, as an indication of the condition of our mind stream. That's really the reason for adhering to the teachings of the guru. One of the reasons. And the other is that hopefully you didn't just find an ordinary self-proclaimed guru, someone that just says they've got the answer. Hopefully that isn't what you would do. What you would do is hopefully to find a teacher who is highly qualified, who has themselves some level of realization, and who can confer to you or cause to be conferred to you a path that is known to lead to enlightenment, one who has resulted in enlightenment again and again and again, such as the Buddha Dharma. It has resulted in many cases of enlightenment, not just one. Many have achieved the precious rainbow body. Many have achieved the incidents of miraculous accomplishment with the signs and indications of that miraculous accomplishment through the practice of Vajrayana Buddhism, and they have done so quickly and sometimes within the span of one lifetime. So, if you should find such a teacher as that, and you form a relationship with such a teacher, with a teacher such as that, then you should accept the responsibility of following the spiritual path in a very humble and very open-eyed way. And that way clearly includes accepting the indication that is given to you by that teacher. Now, unfortunately, and here I'm coming back to the original point that I meant to make, but having built on the indications and stories that I've given to you in this period of time that I've been speaking, maybe you could have a deeper understanding of what it is that I'm about to say. Many students, both Buddhist and non-student, clearly construct their own religion. They make it up as they go. They take a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and something that they think they heard here, and something that maybe they read about somewhere else. And pretty soon they kind of make up their religion. And they make up, generally, what is most comfortable for them to follow. And I've had students who have visited the temple say to me, I'm attracted to Buddhism, I think it's nice, but I feel that I've got my own thing going. And when asked what that thing is, they say, well, I meditate and I feel pretty good about where I'm going spiritually. And they really, when pressed, are not actually following a path. They kind of meditate when they feel like meditating, and they kind of listen to things that attract them, and they go where they want to go spiritually, and they kind of dance around with what feels good to them, what they are attracted to spiritually. But there isn't really a cut-to-the-bone method. That kind of spiritual practice reminds me of a person who, and here's another area in which I can speak with some familiarity, a person who goes to a gym, let's say, to get into good physical health, to get into good physical shape, and wants to do some weight training or some bodybuilding, and maybe they go and they want to use some machines to get them into good shape. So they don't go to a qualified trainer. They go into the gym and they kind of look at the machine and they watch the way other people are doing them, and they kind of pick out which ones they like to use. Maybe they want to use the ones that go like this, and maybe they want to use the ones that go like this, and maybe they like to take a little dumbbell and go like that, because it feels good to go like that. And then they sort of run around the track for a little while, twice, and then then they get on the bike machine, because they can read a book while they do that for 3 minutes, because that's as long as they can hold their interest in the book. And then maybe they put on a nice outfit while they're doing all this. Of course, they look real great when they do that. Put on lipstick before they go out to work out. And then they when they're there, they get on this other machine, because it's a neat machine. It makes beep beeps while you work it. And they punch both buttons and they go beep 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 while they're moving things around. And then pretty soon they stay there for about 20 minutes and they do all of this, and then they leave the gym and they feel like they've worked out. Well, they have. They've done something, and I'm glad they're doing that rather than just sitting down in front of the TV not doing anything. At least they're doing something. That's good. They're getting some blood moving. Maybe they're helping themselves a little bit. But you know what they're never going to be? They're never going to be exactly the kind of physique that they want to, because they really aren't applying the technology that is necessary. You have to apply a certain technology to get the result that you want, and that technology varies according to the result that you want. You have to have some education. You have to find out what you want, and you have to connect that with reality. If you want to bodybuild, you got to lift weights, and you got to learn how to do it. If you want to burn up fat, you got to do cardiovascular, and you got to learn how to do it. You have to push. You have to do more than is comfortable. You have to do more than you're happy doing, because you need to change. And in order to change, you can't just hang out with status quo. People do that spiritually as well. They hang out with status quo. They do not seek out the guidance of a qualified master who can indicate to them what they need by viewing them, and through the pure perception of their own realization, through their practice, can look at them and say, I can see what you need to do, and here's what you need to do. They want to hang out with what's comfortable. They want to hang out in their own private little comfort zone and convince themselves that they're being spiritual. But eventually, like the half-baked bodybuilder, they're going to have to look in the mirror, and maybe a year, 2 years down the road, they're going to have to look at themselves, and they're going to have to see that they're not getting the results that they want. And then they're going to have to make some hard choices. And it's like that with spiritual people. You could practice Buddhism in the way that I've just said, where you take some of it and you say, well, this is the part I like, and you make up your own religion. You can do that with Buddhism, and a year or two down the road you can say, well, Buddhism didn't work for me. Well, you're right, it's not going to work for you that way. It's not going to work that way. Because you didn't have any humility. You didn't have any devotion. You didn't practice the technology. What did you expect? What did you think was going to happen? You did something, that's good. And all you have from that is whatever small, meritorious, virtuous karma that you had from the little bit that you did do. That's all you're going to have. You're going to have what you did. But if perhaps you practice in a different way, like the person who looks at themselves in the mirror and says, I don't think I like the way I look, and you go to a gym and you learn from a qualified trainer and you try real hard to follow instructions. And then you learn how to develop some expertise of your own. And you learn from the masters. You learn what to do. You really look and see what brings the auspicious result. You look to those who have accomplished something. You're not going to go to the gym, for instance, and try to learn from somebody who obviously, is overweight and not in good shape and not doing well. You're going to try to learn from someone who has accomplished something. And it's the same in religion. At some point, you're going to have to get that there is a technology. The most difficult part is to get that you may not like it all. I don't like all that I have to do in Buddhism. In fact, Buddhism is not my favorite pastime. But I like the result. I like the result. By nature, I am not a particularly religious person. That may sound strange coming from me. I don't like religion that much. I don't really like organized religion that much. I don't, personality-wise, I'm not really like that. I don't like organized anything too much. Personality-wise, I am living the worst possible life that I could possibly live. I don't want to be a Lhama. I don't want to be anybody's guru. I don't want to live in a temple. I don't want to live in a temple. I don't want to live in a temple. But anyway, I like the result. I like the result that it has brought about. I like that it has brought about some benefit to all of these students. I like that following the technology exactly brings the auspicious result. And, hopefully, I don't know for sure, but I may have enough humility to recognize that I've got to follow the Buddhist teaching, and I've got to teach the Buddhist teaching in order to bring the result, rather than doing what I like to do. Because I don't always do what's best. How much more so that must be for students who have not really practiced the path to any great extent. We like to do what is easy for us, what is comfortable for us. We like to do what we've always done. And what we've always done is to revolve in cyclic existence. That's what we've always done since time out of mind. And left to our own resources without any guidance, that's what we'll continue to do. We will revolve in cyclic existence, acting and reacting in our habitual way. Believe me, monks and nuns don't take robes because it's easy for them, or because they're inclined to do so. Monks and nuns take robes because they want to break their habitual tendencies, and cold turkey seems to be the best way for them. They want to change. They know they need to change. They're doing what is not natural for them. Unfortunately, we wish to construct a religion of our own making that does what is natural, what feels natural to us, what feels good. A feel-good religion is like a feel-good workout. It will feel good temporarily, but ultimately it will not stop suffering, and it will not break habitual tendencies. It will not accomplish the desired goal. Believe it or not, this teaching that I have given today is really a teaching on devotion, but it's a teaching on devotion that is not traditional. It isn't the way a traditional Tibetan Lama would teach devotion. It is the way I teach devotion because maybe it will help a Westerner who is so used to their own democratic, spontaneous process to understand why it is that at some point we have to knuckle down. And why it is that we may have to, that we do have to accept the guidance of a qualified teacher and form a relationship with that teacher. Why it is that we have to look at what that teacher is giving us once we have formed that relationship and assume that we need it, even if that's bad news. Because if you've heard a teaching on compassion 579 times, by the 579th time, it sort of gets to you. You're sort of picking up the vibes. I'm getting the message that maybe I haven't got compassion down. And gee, I really had hoped that I had, because I'd really feel good about myself if I could just assume that I was a compassionate person. Maybe I need to really knuckle down. Maybe I really need to get it. Maybe I need to put myself out in order to work very hard to benefiting sentient beings, rather than thinking only about myself and what I want to do spiritually. Maybe I need to break the habit of self-absorption. Maybe that's what she's trying to tell me. You can assume, and this is the teaching in the Vajrayana view, that if you needed something different, you would be in a different situation. You would be in a different teaching mandala. When the path appears to you, when that blessing is given to you, by virtue of the accomplishment of Lord Buddha himself, by virtue of the accomplishment of Guru Rinpoche himself, you can assume that when the path comes to you, it will come to you as nectar that you can drink. One of the ways in which a student should choose a teacher is that they should choose a teacher whom they can hear. It does no good, even if it's a different kind, if you can't hear what that Lama is saying. You must choose a Lama that you can hear, that speaks to your heart, to your mind, that makes you honest, makes you look at yourself, rubs your face in it sometimes, but it's necessary. So I hope that in deciding how far you should go as a practitioner, you will take all of these thoughts into account. Please think about the person that goes to the gym and throws around a couple of 2-pound weights in a slick outfit. Think about what that person is going to accomplish. And then think about, another person who might go to a gym and really apply themselves and really learn the technology and really make it work. Maybe you're not a bodybuilder. Maybe that has nothing to do with you. But the analogy is a good one, if you see what I'm saying. Spirituality is very much like that. You have to learn the technology. You have to accomplish the technology, and it's not going to feel natural, because natural is suffering. Natural is continuing to be blaming your environment. Natural is continuing to revolve in cyclic existence. That's what natural is. When you begin a spiritual path, you don't do it to be natural. You do it to change. Of course, the result is a natural result, and that's the only real natural that there is. Because the result of practicing a spiritual path is that we awaken to the primordial wisdom nature, which is the natural state. That is the only true natural that there is. This cause and effect stuff that we've been revolving in, this habitual tendency that we are now engaging in, it's a structure that we continually build ourselves in our own mind streams. That is a direct result of our erroneous perception of self-nature as being solid and real. It's a fallacy. Natural is liberation. But you've got to work hard to awaken to it. So please consider this to be a teaching on how you should approach the path, but specifically a teaching on devotion. Very, very hard point for Westerners to understand. Try to understand devotion as an opportunity for you, not a gift to the teacher. Teacher doesn't need it. You do. So please consider the path in that regard, and I hope that whatever you've learned today, you'll take home and use. If you don't use it, it's done you no good. You might as well have gone to see a movie. Probably would have been more entertaining. But if you do use it, then it is some good. Some benefit comes from it. It only matters what you do. That's all that matters.
Join me.
Thank you so much for joining today and listening to Jetsunma. We I always benefit from these, so I'm hoping that others do as well. And so we do show them on Wednesdays, as you're here now at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as well as Sundays at 11 a.m. The teachings are pre-recorded, and so they are all archived on YouTube. You can find just about everything there. And so please go anytime you want and check them out. In addition, we offer meditation. That's actually live here, the meditation at the temple, Saturdays and Sundays at 10 a.m. But it's also shown on YouTube. So if you can't make it here or you're nowhere close, please tune in. It's led by one of our Anis, and it's really nice to have a same time, same place kind of call to meditate. Every evening at 7 p.m. We have on Facebook a medicine Buddha practice. That was a very short practice done by Jetsunma, and it is great because it's in English, and it's you can find time for it, and you can put in all of those people that you really have been wanting to pray for, and they need it. So and you're joined by others who can do the same. So please join in. Let's see, soak offerings we do every day. It's a feast offering ceremony to gain quite a bit of merit. And you are welcome to come join us here at the temple anytime for these. We have Monday through Friday at 5 p.m., except Thursdays is at 5. I'm sorry, the others are at 5:30. Thursdays is at 5, so that's during the week. And then Saturdays is noon, and Sundays is a 2 p.m. longer practice at the Guru Rinpoche statue. And all of the previous ones are on Zoom, as well as being live here at the temple. The Sunday one is also live at the temple, outside at the Guru Rinpoche statue, usually. And if we can get it up on Facebook, we sometimes can. We're working on the electricity and everything to get the internet pumped over there a bit. Right now, we're just out in the boonies, and so it's hit or miss. But this coming Sunday is going to be a bit special because it is Sakadawa Duchen, which is one of the 4 big holidays here in Buddhism, in our form of it. And so we will have the 2 p.m. Rigzen Dupa live at the statue, and then it'll be followed by a drum circle, which is going to be live, but not at the statue this Sunday. It will be at a new totem pole that Jetsunma has designed, and it's been built by some of the students here, and it will be inaugurated, and we'll have the drum circle around it. And the drum circle's been bringing some rain, so we're pretty enthusiastic about it. Not to mention the fact that it's great to just get together and beat on a bunch of drums and have a good time chanting the Tara Mantra. So come and join us live. That is not an online event. That's a live event. And we hope that you enjoy it and that you come. This time, for that one, come around behind the temple and you'll see. You'll be surprised, and you'll see, and you'll be part of another new thing here at KPC, which is starting to be a habit, the new stuff. So enjoy, please come. It's the totem is actually right near the animals, primarily the goats. I think it's right outside their pen. And so you will have an opportunity to have some fun with some very loving animals, if you wish. Jetsunma has her animal friends out there, and probably former students, who knows. I can certainly relate to some of them. So off we go. Anyway, Great to see you. Hope to see you live. Hope to see you online, anywhere, anyhow, and have a wonderful week. Should you, I always forget this, should you want to make an offering to Jetsunma, you can do that directly to her through her PayPal account. And that's in the chat. It's also, I'm just going to repeat it, jetsumagift@gmail.com. That's the email to use on PayPal. So anytime, anyhow, if you have any questions at all, you can email kpc@tara.org, and that will, you'll reach, it'll get passed to somebody who hopefully can answer your question. We'll do the best we can. So again, have a great week. See you next time.